All right, hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're looking at something that I think every business owner is going to relate to, getting good feedback from your customers. I mean, we all want it, but sometimes it's not easy.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
You got online reviews that can be a bit of a minefield, and then you have the old comment cards, which, let's be honest, nobody really fills those out. But there's this new service called Whisper.feedback, and people are saying it could be a real game changer.
Interesting.
So picture this. You're at a pub enjoying a drink, and you see a QR code on the table.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those popping up.
You scan it, and just like that, you can leave feedback totally anonymously.
No app to download or anything.
Nope, no apps, no accounts, just straight up honest feedback straight to the business owner. What do you think?
I mean, that sounds pretty simple. I like the anonymous part.
Right.
It's the kind of, it gets at that whole thing where people are more likely to be honest when they're not worried about what others will think.
100%. You ever held back from leaving a bad review even if the service was awful? Just because you don't want to be that person.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And that's where Whisper.feedback comes in. It's not just about collecting feedback. It's about creating a space for real talk. Customers can speak their minds and everyone benefits.
That makes sense.
It's not just about avoiding the negative reviews either.
Yeah.
Businesses miss out on valuable insights when customers don't speak up.
Think about all those times you've been to a restaurant or a shop, and there's something that's just a little off, like maybe the music is too loud or the lighting is weird, but you don't say anything because it's not a huge deal.
But those small things can add up, right?
Absolutely. They can really impact the whole customer experience.
So Whisper.feedback is kind of like capturing that lost feedback, those little things that could make a big difference.
Makes you wonder how much valuable feedback just goes unheard.
Right.
And here's another thing that's interesting. Whisper.feedback isn't limited to just text. You can upload photos too.
Seriously. So like if you see a wobbly table or a dirty bathroom, you can just snap a pic and send it in.
Exactly. That visual evidence adds a whole other layer to the feedback.
That's pretty cool. It's like giving businesses X-ray vision into what their customers are seeing.
Especially for smaller businesses.
Yeah.
I think this could be a game changer. They often don't have the budget for fancy customer surveys or mystery shoppers,
This is a way more affordable
and
option.
they're getting these direct, actionable insights.
And speaking of affordable, they're really hitting that point home, aren't they? Saying it's cheaper than a pint of beer per month.
I mean, for most businesses, that's less than a cup of coffee a day.
Totally. Okay, so we've established that it's easy for customers to use, anonymous, and you can even add photos. But what about the business owners themselves? Do they have to be glued to some kind of dashboard?
Not at all. They get an email every time there's new feedback.
So they're not constantly checking.
Nope. And they can click a link to see the feedback and even delete it if they want to.
So it's not just about collecting feedback, it's also about managing it in a way that works for the business.
Exactly. And because it's all anonymous, businesses can look at the feedback objectively. They're not taking it personally or getting defensive. They're just listening to their customers and using that info to improve.
Sounds like a win-win. Customers feel heard, and businesses get valuable insights without all the drama of public reviews. And I'm really curious to hear more about how Whisper.feedback plans to navigate this whole landscape of feedback and communication. Luckily, we have their press release to dive into.
Let's get to it. I'm ready to see what they have to say. Okay, so this press release is dated January 15th, 2025. Looks like Whisper.feedback is a pretty new company. But they're not wasting any time making some bold claims.
Yeah, they're calling themselves a revolutionary new service. That's a pretty big statement.
It is, but sometimes you need a little disruption to shake things up.
Especially in a field like customer feedback. Things have gotten kind of stale, haven't they?
Totally. I mean, online reviews can be a nightmare. And those old comment cards, who even uses those anymore?
Nobody. Whisper.feedback feels like a breath of fresh air. It's simpler, more direct, and it seems like they're really focused on making feedback constructive.
And they're really pushing that whole security and anonymity angle.
Makes sense.
People need to feel like their feedback is truly private.
Right. Otherwise, they're not going to be totally honest.
Exactly. A lot of those other feedback systems, they make you create an account or give them your email address.
It's like a barrier, like they don't really care about your privacy.
Yeah, and that can really discourage people from sharing their real thoughts.
With Whisper.feedback, it's just you, your thoughts, and the business.
No distractions, no middleman.
Okay, so let's get into some of the specifics. One of the benefits they highlight is keep complaints private.
I mean, that's got to be huge for businesses, right?
Huge. Especially these days when one bad online review can go viral and totally tank your reputation.
It's like a safety net. It gives businesses a chance to deal with those complaints behind the scenes before they blow up into a PR nightmare.
It's almost like they're turning negative feedback into a positive.
Yeah, instead of dreading those complaints, businesses can actually use them as opportunities to improve.
And it's not just about damage control either. They're also talking about being proactive.
Right. Getting that real-time feedback so you can spot issues before they become major problems.
It's like catching those little cracks in the foundation before the whole house falls apart.
Exactly. And think about the ox savings there, too. Addressing a small issue now is always going to be cheaper than dealing with a big crisis later on.
Preventative health care for your business.
Yeah.
And speaking of cost, they're not letting us forget about that cheaper than a pint of beer comparison.
It's a catchy slogan. It makes it clear that this isn't just for the big guys.
Anyone can afford it.
Right.
Okay, so we've got keeping complaints private and being proactive. What about those instant notifications they mentioned?
So it looks like every time a customer submits feedback, the business owner gets an email right away.
No waiting around to see if you've got any feedback.
Nope. You know right away if there's something you need to address.
Which is important, right? Especially if it's something urgent.
Totally. It shows you're taking the feedback seriously and you're ready to deal with it.
And we can't forget about those photo uploads. The press release is really pushing that as a key feature.
Yeah, I mean, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Totally.
And in this case, it can make the feedback so much clearer. Like imagine a customer sends in a photo of a broken chair or a leaky faucet.
No more guessing games.
It's right there in front of you.
It takes away that whole he said, she said thing
Right.
and gives the business clear evidence to act on.
Which leads to faster solutions and a better experience for everyone.
Okay, so it's clear that Whisper.feedback is really practical and efficient. But how does it fit into the bigger picture of customer service and communication?
I think it's a real shift in how we think about feedback. We're moving away from that adversarial model, that us versus them mentality.
It's like that old saying, the customer is always right, which can actually create more problems than it solves.
Exactly. Whisper.feedback seems to be promoting a more collaborative approach, where everyone is working together to create a better experience.
And that's where the anonymity comes in. It allows for honest and open dialogue without the fear of judgment.
Right. It takes the personal element out of it, so you can focus on the issue itself.
And that's a big departure from how things have usually been done. I mean, think about those online review platforms. They can be so negative and full of personal attacks.
It's true. They can be helpful sometimes. But they can also be really damaging for businesses, especially smaller businesses that don't have the resources to manage their online reputation.
So Whisper.feedback is kind of like an antidote to all that negativity. It's a safe space for honest feedback, where the focus is on improvement, not punishment.
And I think people are craving that kind of space, a way to communicate honestly without being afraid of being attacked or shamed.
It's like the rebuilding trust, one feedback form at a time.
That's a powerful idea.
So yeah, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We talked about how Whisper.feedback can help businesses, but also about how this whole idea of anonymous feedback could have much wider applications.
It's not just about a product. It's about changing the way we think about communication.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty ambitious.
It is, but I gotta say, I'm impressed. They've given us a lot to think about.
For sure. I think this is just the beginning. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot more about Whisper.feedback in the future.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll see those other applications start to pop up. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Whisper.feedback.
It's been a fascinating one.
A huge thank you to all our listeners for joining us. If you want to learn more about Whisper.feedback, we'll have a link in the show notes.
And until next time, keep those feedback loops open and those conversations flowing.